Rome. For centuries its name echoed with blood and triumph. Emperors were crowned by legions, dethroned by daggers, and immortalized in marble. By the reign of Tiberius Claudius Drusus, the empire stretched from the misty shores of Britannia to the sun-scorched sands of Syria. It had reached its greatest height and also its darkest rot. While legions held the borders, within the capital, the Senate cowered beneath golden ceilings. Whispers carried more power than armies. And at the very heart of this gilded decay stood Empress Julia Sabina, wife of Claudius. She was the woman who would one night defy the empire itself. To the citizens, Julia was divine perfection. Descended from the great Augustus, her beauty was carved in marble, her piety painted on temple walls. She was the ideal empress, walking beside her husband in triumphs, her robes woven with gold and laurel leaves. But behind this pristine public image, Julia was restless, and Rome had never been kind to restless women. As a girl, she consumed the philosophies of Greece, the laws of the Republic, and the histories of tyrants. Her tutors warned her that such knowledge was unfitting for a woman. She just smiled. If wisdom was forbidden to women, she once said, then why did the gods grant us minds capable of wielding it? Her marriage to Claudius was a political chess move. He was a cautious emperor, intelligent but haunted by decades of betrayal. He preferred scrolls to soldiers, and silence to risk. He saw Julia not as a partner, but as a symbol, a pure empress to quiet the rumors of Rome's decay. But Julia saw through the illusion. She understood what the marble halls truly hid: corruption, fear, and men who ruled through deception. The Senate had become a stage for cowards. The Praetorian Guard sold its loyalty for gold. Governors looted entire provinces while the emperor signed decrees he no longer controlled. Rome still called itself eternal, but Julia knew eternity had begun to crack. It started subtly. Senators bribed tax collectors, soldiers deserted their posts for wealthier masters. Famine crept across the provinces like a slow poison. The people of Rome muttered that the gods were displeased, but the emperor, deafened by the flattery of his court, saw only peace. Julia saw the truth, and that truth began to haunt her. At night she would pace the marble courtyards, staring down at the city, an endless maze of streets lit by oil lamps, filled with the cries of both hunger and decadence. Rome looked beautiful from a distance, but she knew it was dying from within. One evening, while the emperor feasted, Julia received a letter. It was unsigned, written in trembling Latin. It spoke of corruption in the grain supply, of senators growing rich by starving the poor. It ended with a desperate plea: if you will not speak, none will. She burned the letter, but its words took root in her soul. Days later, she began to gather voices, quietly, discreetly. Philosophers, scholars, and a few senators whose loyalty to Rome was not yet for sale. Among them was Marcus Aelius Varro, a decorated commander from the Germanic frontier. Varro had returned from years of brutal war to find his homeland poisoned by greed. He despised the Senate and distrusted the emperor's advisors. His loyalty was to the idea of Rome, not its corrupt rulers. He and Julia found in each other a shared anger, a shared impossible dream: to restore the soul of the empire. What began as cautious conversation soon became a secret alliance. Their meetings were hidden behind formal discussions of philosophy and art, but every phrase was edged with subtext. Varro urged her to act, to expose the Senate's rot. Julia hesitated, not from fear, but from strategy. She knew a single misstep could destroy them all. So for months, she played the part of the obedient empress, attending ceremonies, blessing marriages, hosting feasts, all while building a secret circle of reformers. Her plan was bold, almost reckless, to hold a private symposium, a night of open debate about the state of the empire. To speak freely in Rome was to invite death, but Julia believed that silence was the empire's true poison. On the eve of the festival of Vesta, she sent her invitations, handwritten and sealed with her private crest. 12 men were summoned. They were the fragments of what Rome had once been: scholars, magistrates, poets, and soldiers. They met in the Empress's private palace, the Domus Sabina, overlooking the Forum. The torches burned low. Incense filled the air. The guards were dismissed. For the first time in generations, words of truth echoed within the walls of power. Rome was born from courage, she said, but it now survives on deceit. The gods have turned their faces from us because we have forgotten what it means to serve justice. She turned to him, her gaze unflinching. If truth is rebellion, she replied, then Rome itself was founded by traitors. Varro spoke next, urging reform, punishment for corrupt governors, fair taxes, and curbing the power of the Praetorian Guard. The discussion grew heated, passionate, not against Rome, but for her salvation. But even as words of hope filled the chamber, betrayal slithered in the shadows. One of the Empress's servants was a spy for Lucius Ahenobarbus, the Emperor's most cunning advisor, a man who thrived on fear. The spy listened from behind the curtains, memorizing every word. By dawn, the court was whispering of treason. Lucius himself woke the Emperor. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice grave, "the Empress has gathered men in secret. They spoke of your weakness, your unfitness to rule. They plot to replace you." Claudius refused to believe it. Julia had always been loyal. But Lucius presented the evidence, falsified testimonies and fragments of notes. Fear and paranoia, Claudius's oldest companions, took hold. That evening, Imperial guards stormed the Domus Sabina. Torches shattered the darkness. Men were dragged from their beds. The Empress was found in her study, surrounded by scrolls, as if she had been waiting. She didn't struggle. She only demanded to see her husband. In the grand hall, Claudius awaited her, pale and trembling. "You betrayed me," he said, his voice breaking. "No," Julia answered. "I betrayed your silence." The words struck him like a blade. Lucius urged a swift public execution, but Claudius hesitated, fearing the people who adored their empress. Instead, he summoned the Senate for a trial, hoping they would shoulder the guilt. The trial was a spectacle of Rome's hypocrisy. The same senators who had once sought Julia's favor now spat accusations. When given her chance to speak, Julia did not defend herself. She condemned them. "You call me ambitious," she declared. "Yes, for Rome. You call me dangerous. Yes, to your corruption. You call me unchaste because I dared to love truth more than obedience." The Senate fell silent. The verdict was inevitable: exile. She was sent to the desolate island of Pandateria, the place where inconvenient imperial women were sent to be forgotten. Her books were seized, her letters burned. Varro was executed quietly. For months, Julia lived in isolation, surrounded by sea and silence. Yet her mind remained free. She wrote messages in coded verses, smuggled out by sympathetic servants. These writings spread secretly, carrying one refrain: "The empire dies when truth is feared." The emperor read those words in private, and they tormented him. His court grew darker as Lucius seized more power, silencing all dissent. Claudius became a prisoner in his own palace, haunted by the ghost of the woman he had condemned. 3 years later, a messenger arrived from Pandateria. Julia Sabina was dead. Officially, it was a fever, but rumors whispered that the guards had been ordered to end her life. When Claudius received the news, he locked himself in the Imperial library for 3 days. When he emerged, his hair was gray. He ordered every record of Julia's existence erased. Her statues melted, her name struck from prayers. But Rome could not forget. Her followers kept her memory alive in whispers and hidden scrolls. They called her the Lost Voice. Generations later, one of her writings would resurface, a fragment that survived the empire's fall. Empires fall not from conquest, but from silence. When fear becomes law, courage becomes rebellion. Centuries passed. The marble halls of Claudius's palace crumbled. But beneath the ruins, archaeologists found a small bronze pendant. It was inscribed with a single Greek word: aletheia, truth. Some say Claudius himself placed it there, a final act of guilt. The story of Julia Sabina became a legend, the empress who challenged an empire not with swords but with words. Her prophecy came true. Within a century, Rome devoured itself, undone by the very greed and fear she had tried to expose. It began on one forbidden night, when a woman dared to tell the empire it was dying, and the empire chose to silence her. Thanks for watching. If you found this story powerful, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more hidden histories. We'll see you next time.